Hey, good morning, everybody. Today I would like to talk to you about values-based planning. Now, you may have heard of something like this or something similar to this, but because it's kind of an unusual phrase, let me kind of unpack it a little bit. And the way I want to unpack it is by asking you a couple questions, okay? So the first question is, do you know what your core values are? Now, I've asked a lot of people these things, and usually people have some idea of what their core values are, but it's usually kind of a vague description of what their values are. So when we talk about values-based planning, we need to take into account your core values. And when we take into account, we do it in a very precise way. So we very clearly articulate what your values are, and we get that written down, and we keep that in mind when we do the planning process. Okay, the second question is, the last time you made an important decision, did you consider your core values? Now, just like the first answer, most people, when I've spoken to them, they do consider their core values, but they can only consider them as far as they've articulated them. So if they don't have a very clear idea of what their values are to begin with, it makes it very difficult for them to incorporate those values into the decision-making process. So values-based planning is taking your values and clarifying them and then applying them to your decision-making, to your planning when we make plans and implement strategies. So that's what is values-based. Okay, now let's talk about why we need values-based planning. And to help explain this, I've developed this graphic here. These are lenses, and there's three of them, and they're all in a row, in alignment. This is the values lens. Here's where we put our core values, which is what I talked about a second ago. Here's our goals, which we develop as part of the planning process, and here's our behaviors, what we actually do after we have our goals and values figured out. So the idea being here that if all three of these lenses are in alignment, we are making choices and taking action based on what is most important to us, based on our core values. This is the foundational lens here. So the way this works is, let's say your value is adventure. Say you like to go on adventures to travel the world. And let's say your goal is to save money for retirement. That goal is not in alignment with that value, because if you're saving all your money for retirement, you're not going on adventures. So you won't be happy if you're saving all your spare money, you're not going to be happy because you're not taking the adventures that you could be taking otherwise. So let's change that goal. Let's say the goal now is to save $5,000 to go on vacation at the end of the year, to go have an adventure. Now those two are in alignment. See, now we're living in a way that's congruous with your values, and we're planning it that way as well. So then what we do, once these two are in alignment, then we check your behavior. The whole reason we do this is so we have a way to look at what we're doing and say, hey, is this what I want to be doing? Am I living deliberately? So the way we check our behavior is we look at our behavior through the lens of our goals and our values and see if it's lining up. So say you're spending all of your spare income on model trains because you just love model trains, but that's not one of your core values, and it's not helping your goal. So we can look at that and say, hey, what are you doing with all your free money? I'm spending it on model trains. That's not going to work. So now that you have this view, you can say, all right, well, I can't go on vacation because I'm spending my money on model trains. So I'm going to stop spending money on model trains, and now I'm going to put away $200 a month to save for my goal of going on vacation at the end of the year. Now we've changed that to where all three of these are in alignment with one another. And by doing that, like I said, we can live deliberately. So now let's talk about how we identify your core values. And to do this, I play a card game. It's a values exercise based on these cards here from Think to Perform. This is a lovely company, is on the cutting edge of a lot of research, but they produce these cards, and these are different values-based cards. So on each card is a personal value. So there's adventure, what's that say? Friendship. So lots of different values on all these cards, and they are broad enough to where you could very easily describe everything that's important to people in so many words. Not exactly. So the way you play this game is I sit down on the other side of the table with you, and we start parsing through the different values, and we separate them into piles based on what's important to you and what's not important to you. And then we distill it down into 5 core values. Once you have your 5 core values, Then what we do is we go through those values and we articulate exactly what that means to you. What is this value in practice? So to keep with our example of adventure, if your sense of adventure is geocaching locally, that might not be the same thing as someone's sense of adventure who is climbing Mount Everest. They're similar in description or in semantics, but not in the personal description. So these values are personal to each individual and they are as unique as fingerprints. So that's why we take the time to go through it with our clients to figure out what it actually means to you and how we could put it into practice with your goals and your behaviors. So we would go through this, we would figure out what your individual values are, and then what we would do is we would write those values down on a little piece of paper and put them in prominent places so that you can find your values and reference them when you have a difficult decision to make. And from our end as financial planners, what we do is we look at, when we're making plans and strategies, we look at what your values are and make sure that they're all in alignment. We don't want you to be dissatisfied. We want your goals to support the things that are important to you. So that's why we do this. So yeah, that's the how we do it. So we've pretty much covered all of it. If you'd like to play this game, feel free to give me a call. We come down in the office. I mean, we'll just do it one-off. It doesn't even need to be, there's no strings or anything. We'll just go through it and see what's important to you. Or if you'd like to do it in the safety and comfort of your home, there is a link that I will put down to the website Think to Perform, who produces these cards. They have a online version you can do the card game with too. It really comes down to when you have to make the choice between like which kid do you love the most? These values are all important to you. So like really hammering down where the hierarchy is really helps us get a crystal clear picture on our core values. So that's it for today. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Please feel free to like, comment, and interact with us in all of our social media. Have a great day.